It's the WrestleTalk Podcast, and I'm over on the wrong side today. What's going on, everybody? Tempest is here with the one and only, the good brother SP3 to talk about NXT. Glorious. Sort of. Not really glorious because he doesn't have the song, but it's glorious. He won't give in. He won't give in till he's victorious. Bobby Roode has returned to NXT for the first time in like almost 5 years. It's a long time. So if you want to have your thoughts and feelings read out about Bobby Roode's return to NXT, or just your thoughts about NXT in general, or your thoughts about Raw, AEW, doesn't matter. Send in your thoughts to WrestleTalk.com/support, and you will read out all of the Ultrachats before we get through this show today. SP3, there is something going on outside your window, my friend.
Yes, this is how it is to be in New York City. You hear sirens at 10 a.m. in the morning. For everyone who is in the UK, it is the afternoon. This is a morning in New York City. But I am glad to be here with the most knowledgeable man in professional wrestling media, Tempest. And we're on mutual ground. We're here to talk about NXT. We had a very great main event, in my opinion, and an exciting finish to kind of build up to next week's main event. So I'm glad to be here to talk about this episode.
Well, I'm glad you're here too. I'm certainly a little bit perplexed about everything that's happened. I thought Pete and I had a bit of a plan a week ago before the most recent set of predictions, and then he bailed on the SmackDown podcast, and he's bailed on me again today. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm here with a wonderful co-host in SP3 here, the good brother himself, and we're here to talk about Bobby Roode. That is the point here, not jam that championship nonsense. We're here to talk about Bobby Roode. So this show started with a promo from Bron Breakker where he basically came out and he talked about NXT Stand and Deliver. They shot the angles for their next big show. This one will be kind of more in line with like the War Games show, given that it's like on a separate day from the usual Wednesdays compared to Halloween Havoc, New Year's Evil, or Vengeance Day. These were all just special episodes of NXT. This is going to be a big event. So it looks like we're going to get Bron Breakker versus Dolph Ziggler in the main event of that show, which sounds good to me. But Bron Breakker comes out, talks about defending the title in NXT Stand and Deliver. He is then interrupted by Dolph Ziggler, who tells Bron Breakker that he's wearing a Canadian tuxedo. Damn right. No sleeves, though. I feel like you need sleeves for a Canadian tuxedo. But he said that he's not going to make it to NXT Stand and Deliver as the NXT champion, and told him that he's going to be banned from ringside during his main event match with Tommaso Ciampa that night. Pretty solid promo, I thought, but it led into the main event where we had Tommaso Ciampa against Dolph Ziggler, and they were having a pretty fun little main event match. Really, it was the only match on the show I thought was worthy of note. Like, most of the other matches were pretty short, nothing really happening, but this one, they were going all out. They were hitting finishers, kicking out of big near falls, and eventually Tommaso Ciampa was hit with a cameraman who was under a hood. Who could it possibly be but the one and only Bobby Roode, Robert Roode, the other half of the Dirty Dogs, former NXT champion, returning to the brand for the first time since 2017. It allowed Dolph Ziggler to hit a super kick and get the win, pretty much setting up Dolph Ziggler as the number one contender for the NXT title. But then Bron Breakker ran them both off, and they had a big brawl to close out the show. SP3, what are your initial thoughts about Bobby Roode, a former NXT champion, returning to NXT 2.0?
Well, it has another name from Raw over on NXT. So I've been really liking this whole symmetry that we've been seeing between NXT and Raw. You know, we get it more in the mid card. So I would love to see it, more prominently featured in the main event, because Raw doesn't have a main event title. So you can feature this type of stuff in the main event, but slow, steady progression. We had the AJ Styles and Greyson Waller feud that saw some interaction. And now we got, Tommaso Ciampa on Raw this week, teaming up with Finn Balor. Then we got Bobby Roode showing up on NXT. It's a return of a former NXT champion, so that adds something new. And the Dirty Dogs in the tag team division in NXT feels bigger than them on Raw or SmackDown. So them in the main event scene against Bron Breakker and Tommaso Ciampa next week should be a lot of fun. I like this main event. I felt like the finish was kind of telegraphed, and when it was the cameraman, I was kind of hoping it was like Tony D'Angelo, honestly. I want wanted it because Tony D doesn't have a feud going on. Like Dolph Ziggler paid him off to attack Tommaso Ciampa just to start something new, to kind of put, Dolph Ziggler on the path to Bron Breakker while Tommaso Ciampa starts something new as well. But the opening segment and as well as the show overall, for me, I watched Monday Night Raw, and that's the first Raw on the road to WrestleMania with 6 weeks away. I felt more hype for NXT Stand and Deliver on this episode of NXT than I felt any type of WrestleMania season energy on Monday Night Raw. So that's one positive about this show overall.
I feel that. And I said at the end of my edited review, which has not gone out yet, keep tabs on WrestleTalk main channel for my NXT review coming later today. But I feel like if the top 2 matches of Stand and Deliver are going to be Bron Breakker against Dolph Ziggler for the NXT title, and then Tommaso Ciampa against Bobby Roode, that's a pretty good top half of a card. If those are your top 2 matches, I think those are 2 pretty good top matches. So I'm looking forward to that very much. And it'll be interesting to see, because we haven't seen very much out of Bobby Roode on the main roster pretty much ever. Like, he had a good run with Chad Gable as Raw Tag Team Champions, and they were having like incredible matches on house shows with the Revival and things like that. But as far as being like an established protected star, the ball was dropped on Bobby Roode like basically right out of the gate. Short run as US champion, but otherwise never a top star on the main roster. So it'll be interesting to see how he's portrayed now back in NXT, because I still do see the separation between the main roster and NXT, where you can have Dolph Ziggler be Dolph Ziggler on the main roster as much as you want, but when he comes down to NXT, he does feel like a bigger star. And I feel like the same is true for Bobby Roode. So it'll be interesting to see where all of this goes. And like you said, this was a pretty good main event. This was a pretty fun main event. Finish may have been telegraphed. Fine, sure, absolutely. I'll give you that, no doubt in my mind. But is Bobby Roode the kind of guy that you want to see coming back down to NXT? Because really, he's not doing anything on the main roster, like I just said. He is a former NXT champion. But on top of that, he was still kind of like an NXT champion from a weird era of NXT. Like that 2017 stretch was kind of an era of NXT that it was right after that 2016 brand split where they gutted the NXT roster. They called up all the stars all at once, and you had, a lot less talent on NXT than you would see before or since. But Bobby Roode was one of those guys that kind of like carried the flag during those years, kind of like a Yuji Nagata of NXT, perhaps carrying it during the down years. So what do you think about, stars returning to NXT in general, and in this case, Bobby Roode?
I like this type of usage. Guys like Bobby Roode, guys like Dolph Ziggler that don't really have things going on the main roster. They just feel more important when they go down to NXT, because they've kind of stripped everything away and they've rebranded it. I think it would be kind of different, if he was going back to the old NXT. Then that's like a returning kind of hero coming back to say hello to the little kiddies that are there now. Whereas this one kind of just feels like he's a star that's providing star power to the show, that's going to help out the younger guys by working with them. And I would love for other stars on Raw that are not really getting use. Like I thought of another tag team on Raw that could get a lot of use out of being in the tag team division in NXT is the Hurt Business. Cedric Alexander and Shelton Benjamin. And Shelton Benjamin, someone that's been in the company for over 15 years, he adds a lot if he can work with the young guys like Bron Breakker. Like I would love to see him and Carmelo Hayes. Oh my God, what a banger they would have if they get 10-15 minutes on an episode of NXT, and just putting them in the tag team division and working with the Creed brothers, because the Creed brothers kind of had this Steiner energy, and working with someone who's athletic like Shelton Benjamin, someone who's so versatile as Cedric Alexander, that can add so much. So like I said, like Dirty Dogs being on NXT just feels a lot more than it is on the main roster, that I want to see more of this. I want to see Cesaro go back down to NXT. I want to see Ricochet have a few bangers with Cameron Grimes, Pete Dunne, and Carmelo Hayes. I want to see all of this. I think there's a way to make this work where it adds a lot to NXT and it helps out the stars that aren't being underutilized on Raw and SmackDown.
You really sold me on Shelton Benjamin right there. I gotta be honest. He's never been someone that I've thought about in that same sort of way as like, oh, he'd do well in a return to NXT, but You sold me. Shelton Benjamin against Braun Breaker. More need not be said. And that's before getting into Shelton Benjamin versus Carmelo Hayes. So I completely agree with you. Let's get into some of your Ultra Chats, see what you guys kind of think about all this. Of course, our wonderful, wonderful moderators are sharing the links around, of course. If you want to have your thoughts read out on this show, make sure you send in an Ultra Chat, $5 US or higher, to WrestleTalk.com/support. And we will read out all of your Ultra Chats before the end of the show. The first one, Riot DR, says, first off, love you guys. Thank you for all the content that gets me through work. Second, this main event was quite exceptional. Always great to see Ziggles wrestle the way Ziggles can. Third, Malcom Bivens is a treasure and must be protected. More later. Absolutely, Malcom Bivens is absolutely a treasure and must be protected.
The little sweat on the side of his head while he gave the thumbs up. Perfect. Perfect.
There's few guys that have the same sort of comedic timing on the WWE roster, on the NXT roster, and pro wrestling in general compared to Malcom Bivens. He's very much over with me. One from Raw that was missed. Micah Pellegrini says, hey guys, Stone Cold is from Texas, the Lone Star State. Stardust, Cody versus Stone Cold. It all makes sense. I no longer watch Raw, so my best friend tells me what happens in real time as it happens. Still better than Raw. All the best. I watched Raw this week because I thought Cody might show up, and that's something that you probably want to see live. So I watched I didn't hardcore pay attention, but it was on. But it was on for the whole 3 hours, which is more Raw than I'd probably watched. And I don't even know when the last time I would have watched Raw would be. I have no idea. If Edge is on, I might watch Raw, but that's about it.
I mean, Edge's promo was good, but I really was hoping that someone would interrupt him, because you just had a Hall of Famer, an 11-time world champion, basically begging for someone to verse him at WrestleMania, and no one answered him. It just felt like, come on, guys.
He said he was phenomenal. That has to be where it's leading, right?
I was like, he says phenomenal. Hit AJ's music. Let's just get it done. He doesn't have to talk. Just do the stare down, shake, point to the sign, do whatever you need to do. Get it done.
Yeah. Do the Undertaker Triple H thing where they just walk out, look at each other, look at the sign, and be like, "Yep," and that's it. You don't need to do anything else. Whatever. It's fine. And the final Ultra Chat before we get into the rest of the show. Van Twinblade donates $5 to say Effie's Big Gay Brunch over WrestleMania. # wrestling is gay. Both of those statements are correct. I can't wait to watch Big Gay Brunch again. WrestleMania weekend. Wrestling is gay. Wrestling should be gayer. As always, if you want your Ultra Chats read out, make sure you send them in to WrestleTalk.com/support, and we will read all of your Ultra Chats regarding NXT, or really whatever you want to talk about before the end of the show. Make sure you get those in. For the rest of this show, our first match after all of that nonsense with Bron Breakker and Dolph Ziggler was LA Knight taking on Grayson Waller. LA Knight got the shine going into the break. Waller got the heat until LA Knight cut him off. He was doing his little rolling inside the ring stunner thing, got hit with a back suplex instead. And then we had a really weird finish where it looked like the whole idea was LA Knight was going to hit his finish, his little headlock driver on Grayson Waller, only for Sanga to grab his arm over the top rope and keep him from getting tugged down. They'd messed up the timing of that. It looked real wonky. And then Grayson Waller just kind of pinned LA Knight. It's supposed to be a roll up, but he just kind of pinned him. It was really odd. And then LA Knight laid out Grayson Waller and Sanga after the match. We're gonna go again. SP3, what did you think of this?
I was like, so none of this mattered. No one gets over. No one gets the one up. It's kind of 50-50 booking at its best for something that last week, when you saw their promo segment, you would have thought that they were leading into a whole big blow off this week, that they could have got the main event spot, but they got the opener. They gave them a little bit of time, but not enough time for the amount of television time this feud has gotten. When they remind us during the entrances, this started all the way back at Halloween Havoc over hosting the show, and now we're here in February going into March, and it's still not over. But it sounds like in the post match, he's setting up a last man standing match. I don't know if that's going to be as stand and deliver based on how long they've devoted to the storyline. It kind of makes sense that it would be there. This could also go down on in the next couple of weeks. That's why I said, like, with the kind of the vibe of the show, they did build up stand and deliver, but they also were talking about like the road to WrestleMania weekend, and that there's going to be important matches. There was an important match set up for next week, and I think we're going to probably see this last man standing match in the weeks leading up to stand and deliver. This was okay, but like I said, it kind of nullified itself by the post match.
Right. And I thought the same thing going into this, because I forgot that this dated back even further to Halloween Havoc. I was like, this is like been going on since War Games, and War Games was like 2 months ago. Why are we still going? I will say about this feud in particular, and really everything they've done with Grayson Waller, because I don't think he's doing bad work. You know, he's a serviceable geek heel. But we're here now months later, and like they were doing the getting crotched on the top rope and then shaking the top rope spot. You know, this was like a fairly lighthearted match. You know, this wasn't like a grudge match to settle the feud. Grayson Waller has felt less important pretty much every week after the Johnny Gargano angle, which to me was like, well, there's the guy that's going to beat Bron Breakker. Like, there's your top heel of the promotion. They'll build that match up, and then you'll have Grayson Waller be the top champion and build up for the next babyface, and you go on and on. I don't feel that way anymore. Like, I don't think he's close to that same level that he was when he, you know, took out Johnny Gargano, perhaps for the final time in NXT. We still don't know. He just feels like he's having a mid-card feud with LA Knight, and that's all it is, and it'll be blown off in a last man standing match, which will probably be fine, but I don't know. It just doesn't quite feel as important as I thought it was going to.
Yeah, you would think that this is the type of feud that could elevate both guys, because LA Knight has the promo skills, the character work to kind of be a main eventer. And based on that whole angle with Johnny Gargano, you're thinking, okay, Grayson Waller is their next like top heel. And then the other guy that they kind of turned at the same time was Von Wagner. And neither one of them seem like they are the people that they were right after their big turns on the same episode. They kind of, you know, you had one beat down Kyle O'Reilly, one beat down Johnny Gargano, and then we're here 2 months later, and it's like, these are the guys you were supposed to be building behind. I don't think they're supposed to be where they're at. And they've really tried with Grayson Waller. He's feuded with former 2-time WWE champion AJ Styles. They gave him a heater just in case no one believed that he could beat people. Now he's got a heater in Sanga, and it's nothing. There's nothing there. And that's what I kind of said when they were devoting so much time to him during the AJ Styles feud. When I saw him on Raw not get much of a reaction, when I see him on NXT every week, I'm like, he's not that guy. like you, if you want to build up a future top heel, you got a guy doing that by just wrestling great matches in Carmelo Hayes. So why don't you just focus on that? Because he has the talent to do it. You're trying to put a round peg in a square hole with Grayson Waller. He's gonna be a very reliable mid-card heel. Just don't focus on him like he's a main eventer, because it's gonna feel empty.
I mean, I struggle to disagree with you when you say it like that. I mean, if you're looking for somebody to take the title off Bron Breakker, if you want to keep him in NXT for that long, Carmelo Hayes is as good an option as anybody. I don't know if you want to go and put the title back on someone from like the NXT 1.0 era, like a Pete Dunne, Cameron Grimes, Tommaso Ciampa type of guy. I don't think they want to do that. So if they want to try and transition that title reign over to somebody new, I think Carmelo Hayes is pretty much as good an option as you're going to find. So we continue on, because we had a lot of play for the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic on the women's side this time. And we saw that with Dakota Kai coming up to Wendy Choo and being like, you put us in the Dusty Cup? Why didn't you tell me? And she was like, well, I told your friend, the one you're always talking to. And it is goofy, lighthearted fun. And Dakota Kai has her latest mental breakdown where she's having her split personality, talking to her invisible friend, saying maybe Wendy Choo can be like the third time's the charm with friends. Maybe I won't turn on this friend, which I don't know how I'd feel about that if I was Wendy Choo, but that does give Dakota Kai some character motivation, which she just hasn't had for like the last 6 months, basically since the Raquel Gonzalez match happened. So, for the sake of that, I'm glad that we're getting some sort of development on the part of Dakota Kai. This has the potential to be like a fun team. At the same time, I'm not expecting them to make it past like the first or second match. So, it should be fun, but I don't know. I'll let it play out. I'll let it play out, but not with a ton of optimism.
Yes, this very obviously seems to be setting up a singles match more than
Yeah.
it is a long extended tag team run with these two. But you look at the brackets, it does set up, if they win their first round matchup, for the second round for them to verse Cora Jade and Raquel Gonzalez. That has a lot of story. The first two women that won the women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic going up against each other, so that should be fun. There's a lot of segments on NXT. I don't know what I'm watching. Like this one was one of the where I felt like I was watching an old episode of Mad TV than I was NXT. Like I really, and there was other segments on this night where I was like, am I watching a reality show? What am I watching here? This doesn't feel like professional wrestling all the time, but at least Dakota Kai has a story because they have criminally dealt her wrong, because she should already be on the main roster. Like I've heard people say, Raquel Gonzalez, Io Shirai should be on the main roster. At least they got stories. Like Dakota Kai doesn't really have a story. They have kind of just tacked this on, but it hasn't felt like she, like you said, it hasn't had a real something of substance since that Raquel Gonzalez feud.
Yeah, she's been in NXT for so long. Give her something to do. So we had Toxic Attraction going to the Toxic Lounge, which is their version of like the little crow's nest area in the NXT building, and they were going to watch all of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic matches. And the first one we got here was Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray against Lash Legend and Amari Miller. Now, Lash Legend is supposedly very green. Like very, very green. The reason that she was supposedly doing lashing out with Lash Legend was because her in-ring work wasn't there. This was the word out of the Performance Center. That being said, for this match, I didn't think that she did anything wrong. It was a very simple match. It was a squash match, basically. Amari Miller and Lash Legend got very little offense. But Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray were able to get the win with the KLR bomb and then the moonsault. So there isn't much to complain about here, but it was a very short match. Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray move on to the next round of the tournament. I don't think there's a whole lot to take away from this match, but SB3, your thoughts?
No, not really too much to take away. I mean, Io and Kaylee Ray are kind of the favorites, and you kind of didn't see another option than for them to win this match. And I do agree with you with Lash Legend, like because of all the things I heard in the infamous match she had on 205 Live with Saray that is already being called the worst match of the year. I thought that I was going to see Jenna Maraca or Charnel versus each other at Victory Road, and it was like, no, she's just a green worker in NXT. I like the fact that we see that often on NXT, so it's not really a big deal when someone else that's green is working. So I'm willing to give her time because she does have the size and a nice look to her.
That's fair. I think that's fair. And again, I think it's hilarious that Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray are like the favorites in the tournament. It's like the first time they've ever been a tag team, their first match together ever.
To be fair, like with the first one, they gave it to like a tag team, a partnership that we knew of Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. But the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, who was the first winners? Finn Balor and Samoa Joe. They need like an all-star tag team to win this, to kind of solidify it on the same level as the men's tournament. And I feel like Io and Kaylee kind of fit the bill.
I don't disagree, and you bring up a good point. I think I would be less put off by this if there were tag teams in the tournament. If they weren't all thrown together tag teams. There's like Kacy Catanzaro and Kayden Carter, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So it's neither here nor there, but it's fine. It's fine. I mean, if you want to talk about segments backstage that I don't understand, we got Josh Briggs and Brooks Jensen having their running series of segments throughout this show, trying to get Brooks Jensen to do videos for a dating app. And we might as well talk about all three of them here.
Please,
I don't want to keep going back to them.
The highlight of the show. This gave me the most laughs. Like, this was so bad, it was hilarious.
we got the first one where it's like, oh, we need to set you up for a dating app. Talk about yourself. And hi, my name's Briggs. Oh wait, no, that's your name. Couldn't get the writing in these segments is appalling. But that's the first one. The first one is Jensen doesn't know his own name. So we're already dealing with the sharpest of tools in this here NXT shed. The second one, he just keeps babbling on about, it's like, well, I like girls, I like guys, but no, not like that, but not like there's anything wrong with that. Whew. And then finally the third one, the same girl that they were talking to last week was just like, oh, you could just use a picture. Here, click, let me set it up for you. And he's like, Briggs, why are we been doing this for an hour and a half? And he's like, well, you're funny. You make me laugh. Your struggles and your pain make me laugh. So great friend you got there. But what are we watching here? NXT 2.0 is a sketch comedy show. The problem is their sketch comedy is not funny, at least not in the way that they want it to be. And it's appalling to me because there's two different storylines on WWE TV right now where the sole point of the story is that there's a dude in the friend zone. We got Reggie and Dana Brooke on Raw, and we got Brooks Jensen and Kayden Carter on NXT. How do we have two exactly the same? The only difference is one of those storylines has a 24/7 title attached to it. Otherwise, these are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
WWE is not the most creative company, so you're gonna see a lot of retread. 9 times out of 10, the world title feuds on Raw and SmackDown are not very much different in the way they are booked. You get a contract signing here, you get a face-to-face promo, you'll get a week where they both separately cut promos, and then you'll get a match that interacts someone that knows the champion versus the challenger. That's how the world title feuds work. So you're going to see kind of mismatch with NXT and Raw, but at least on Raw, the 24/7 title makes it interesting. They've traded back, the two people that, the guy who's in the friend zone and the girl. WWE is trying to get across the message that the friend zone is horrible and you're a cornball and a lame if you're in it, basically. That's the message that they are trying to get across clearly from both shows because Brooks Jensen is pathetic. And I felt like I'm not talking about the person. I'm talking about the character, ladies and gentlemen. Like, that's what the message that we get across. He's so pathetic that his friend, who's a professional wrestler, who we also know likes to drink and go to the bar, he'd rather not drink. He'd rather not wrestle. He'd rather just see how pathetic his friend is and videotape him for an app of, I don't know what type of dating app you need videos of, and why Jensen thought he needed to be here for an hour and a half and talk about it. But like I said, it was so bad. I laughed a lot at this because I was just like, this is just so bad that if I don't cringe, I just have to laugh.
You laugh so you don't cringe.
Yes. Pretty much.
Oh.
I don't see how they're gonna build this tag team to be anything of worth going farther, though. I mean,
I was about to say, what's the end goal here? Is Brooks Jensen supposed to get cheered the next time he's on television? I would not be cheering this man. I can tell you that right now. We had Dante Chen backstage saying that this was going to be his day for vengeance, and Duke Hudson's not going to be able to sweep Persia off of her feet because he won't have a leg to stand on. That didn't happen because Dante Chen attacked Duke Hudson during their entrance and then just kind of beat him up around the ring for a little while. Got a decent amount of fire, and then Duke Hudson just hit a big boot in his razor's edge and beat him. Get shit on Dante Chen. Dante Chen came back after his injury, and I saw his little promo where he was just like, all I wanted to do was wrestle in front of my father. And he got to see my debut match, but I got hurt, and then I wasn't able to wrestle in front of him again, and then he passed away. So now I'm coming back, and every match that I wrestle is going to be for you, Dad. And I was like, oh, God, put the title on him. Put the title on him right now.
Right?
Oh. And then eventually that match, his return match, was interrupted by Duke Hudson. And I was like, okay, well, you better beat Duke Hudson. And then he didn't beat Duke Hudson. And he got beaten in like very, very decisive fashion. So I don't know. I think they're missing the boat here. Because, again, I think this is WWE looking at Duke Hudson and being like, he's big. Looking at Dante Chen and being like, he's small. And not worrying about the fact that Dante Chen has a much more interesting and intriguing story of the two of them at the moment. So
yeah,
that's disappointing, but also it's WWE, and I'm not surprised by those things.
This is when you really realize that the main roster creative is here in NXT, because like you said, that Dante Chen video package where he talked about his time away, loss in the family, it gave you a connection to him as a fan. And then in his debut match, he doesn't even get the victory. He gets beat down by Duke Hudson, who was a poker player before we saw him last. And then he's totally dominated this feud. He jumped him the week, then Dante Chen returned. Then the following week, he hit him in the leg and laid him out. And then this week, without even cheating, he just beats Dante Chen. I think that they just established too many of these new stars. They try to introduce everybody, throw things at the wall, and they just present them as lame. Like, there's a lot of characters on this show that are just like, well, he's lame. He's going to be a main roster jobber to the stars. Like, it's like you don't give them a path to succeed where people can see them for the first couple of weeks and be like, man, he's going to be great on the main roster and he's going to do great here in NXT. They don't do that. They just introduce so many people. And although people have a great connection to the fans or can create that, like Dante Chen, they don't develop them or don't invest in them.
Yeah, and honestly, because I kind of look at it the same way that I look at something like AEW, and people will, because look at that, people will get upset by this, but
yeah,
in AEW, you see the people that they bring into the company that don't get a lot of wins, right? Like a Dante Martin at first, like a Lee Moriarty, a Daniel Garcia, that sort of thing. The people who start off low. Yeah. But they do a good enough job of establishing to the audience that these guys are stars and they will get better, and they're just young, they're inexperienced, they're not winners yet. I never feel the same way when I'm watching NXT, and you got people like Dante Chen, Idris Enofe, Malik Blade, now Draco Anthony, but this kind of tier of guys where they like do 1 week of vignettes, they bring them in, and then they're just job guys. I don't feel like these guys are young and learning and they're going to develop their craft and become better wrestlers and better members of the NXT roster. I just see it's like, okay, well, there's another job guy. And that's disappointing because I look at all four of those guys and I was like, they should be ones that they're, they don't need to win right off the bat, but you need to tell me that they have the potential to win. And I don't think that NXT does that very well. That's just me.
No, they don't. Like you said, those guys, you could tell me one of their names and I'll probably confuse them with the other one because they gotta all put them on the same tier. They are not that important, and the company is not going to invest in them, at least for right now.
Yeah, it's a shame. It really is. But next we had a in-ring promo from Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. Melo says that tonight was a Melo-Bration, brags about having the match of the night last week of Vengeance Day and beating Pete Dunne, says that no one was talking about Braun Breaker or Pete Dunne. Trick brings up Stand and Deliver, and then Pete Dunne comes out. Dunne dares Melo to have a match next week, and Melo agrees. And so I thought this was going to be a Stand and Deliver match for sure, but we're getting it next week. That being said, this will probably have a DQ finish or some sort of schmoz, and then they'll just do the match again at the pay-per-view, live event, whatever you want to call it, whatever Stand and Deliver is. I don't know what their corporate jargon is, but this led to Cameron Grimes attacking Trick Williams and Carmelo Hayes after the promo. This led to Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. This was another match where I thought, man, Trick Williams is green. He does a lot of kicks. He should be the leader of Team Trick. That's a joke that's also going into my edited review, which it's hard to say. Like, usually I'll repeat some jokes from my edited review, but this is now going out before the edited review. So maybe now I'm taking some of the impact away from them. It doesn't matter. They had a match. It was pretty basic. Trick Williams' offense is mostly kicks. Cameron, he was just kind of green. They messed up an arm drag fairly badly. But Cameron Grimes went for a big cross body. And if you time it right, if you time the turn into the cross body, it looks really good. I remember Dolph Ziggler and Kofi Kingston did it perfectly 12 years ago.
Yeah.
This was not perfectly timed, and it looked like Cameron Grimes just kind of wiped out Trick Williams. But that then led into the cave-in, and Cameron Grimes just got the win. It's another one of those matches where I say it's developmental, and there are people here that don't wrestle real good, and that's okay. That's okay to have matches like this, but that doesn't mean it's not a bad match. You know what I mean?
No, it could be both. They could be trying to get them experience, get them time in the ring, get them seasoning, but they're gonna be green, so it's not gonna be a good match. And this wasn't a good match. Trick Williams very much reminds me of Orlando Jordan in the ring. If you remember Orlando Jordan when he first started out, all he did was those stomps and maybe an athletic move or two, but it was mostly those stomps, and it was very reminiscent the way Trick Williams does it. So that's why I got that vibe during this matchup. Trick has a great personality. He's really good on the mic. He's funny. So I think that they found him a good role as the second to Carmelo Hayes. So they just need to get him more time, more seasoning. And yes, that means us as fans have to deal with a couple of bad matches. But I think that they are setting up a triple threat at Stand and Deliver. I think it's going to be Cameron Grimes, Pete Dunne, and Carmelo Hayes because of the way that he won last week, Carmelo Hayes over Cameron Grimes with the help of Trick Williams. I think it sets up that Cameron Grimes still wants another opportunity. He's a big star for NXT. He should be on the Stand and Deliver card, and a triple threat between those three guys, that's going to be match of the night, in my opinion.
I don't think there's any chance of it not being match of the night. That sounds fantastic. I'm absolutely with you there. I want to see it. We had the other Brooks Jensen dating app thing. And moving on, we had Braun Breaker checking in on Tommaso Ciampa. Ciampa says that it's Breaker 1, Ciampa 1, and he needs to know who's better. At some point, we're going to get another match between these two. I said this last week, maybe the week before, but I do hope that they do these as a series of singles matches for Braun Breaker. I just like the stories that he tells better when it's singles matches than if they did, put all the people together. It's Dolph Ziggler, it's Santos Escobar, it's Tommaso Ciampa all at once. And I don't need to do that. Andre Chase. Now this to me was a very interesting segment. Andre Chase is at Chase University. They have B-roll of a real university. So in kayfabe, in WWE canon, Chase University exists and is a place. It's out there. It might be in the same place as partsUNknown.
It's in Orlando, maybe.
It's in Orlando. partsUNknown is just Orlando, Florida. I'll be real.
Yeah.
Sorry to burst your bubble. This is where the Ultimate Warrior comes from. Anywho, he's got his little class of 6 people, right? This tiny little classroom. And he's talking about intestinal fortitude. It's this is something that you need if you are going to be successful in the ring or in life. And he's talking about it. So what does intestinal fortitude mean? It means you've got balls. Incorrect, sir. Intestinal fortitude. Your intestines. Intestinal fortitude means you have guts.
Yes.
That's what that means.
Yes.
Testicular fortitude. Did Mick Foley teach you nothing? Testicular fortitude means you have balls. Anywho, some dude asked him about how are you ever going to beat Von Wagner, and he's like, I'm going to kick his ass. Doesn't matter. They're doing an Andre Chase Von Wagner match. I don't care. How do you mess up intestinal fortitude and whatever he was talking about?
I don't understand how he confused the two, and he's the teacher. I felt like this is like a Mad TV or Key and Peele version of Shane Douglas' character. Like that's what Andre Chase is with these classroom segments. And sometimes they hit, sometimes they're funny, but this one, that's guts. Yeah. Guts, balls, 2 different places. One's above the other. Just to give you a hint.
Not qualified to be a teacher. The next match we had, and I know there are people that are looking forward to hearing people talk about this, was the debut of Nikkita Lyons taking on Kayla Inlay. This was basically a squash. Wasn't a whole lot to this. Kayla Inlay got some offense in, more than I was expecting. But Nikkita Lyons, this was her match to like show off the moves that she's going to do. She hit a German suplex. She hit a spinning roundhouse kick. And then she hit Melina's old like splits leg drop. And that had Twitter going real crazy last night because, I mean, it's Twitter. She got the win with that move. She got the win with her split-legged drop. I keep wanting to call it a drop kick. It's not a drop kick. It's a leg drop. It's a leg drop. Maybe if she's stealing from Melina, maybe one day she can be a Quizlemania champion.
Hey,
you never know.
She's very talented. She could do the round where they do the singing. You know, she has a singing background from her family. She's second generation, so
maybe there'll be a dancing round introduced to Quizlemania at some point. Maybe, you never know.
There's a lot to do there. All I will say is that I think that Nikkita Lyons looked like a star. She was presented as a star. She stood out. And this was the first time during this whole NXT 2.0 rebrand that I felt like they had a female star. I think that Cora Jade is very talented and has a lot of skills and could be an underdog babyface, but she doesn't really scream star power to me.
Right.
And, you know, we've talked about the Lash Legends. There's the Amari Millers of the world. Wendy Choo is a great comedy character, but there was nobody that I could be like, well, that girl's going to be NXT Women's Champion in a year. And this was the first time it felt like that because she has the look that Vince loves. This is that we all know that. And she looks athletic. That kick that she hit at the end looked very impressive. So she has some poise to her, some confidence. She's a little green, but I think the one nitpick and the one mistake that they made was having any offense on her, having her sell. Because the thing with green wrestlers is they don't look green if they're on offense a lot of times. And she didn't. When she was on offense, she knew what she was gonna do, wanted to do, and she did it. It was when she had to sell is when you were like, yeah, she hasn't wrestled a lot. That was the only time. And I was like, why couldn't they just make her the female Hook? All you had to do here is make it 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Let her hit some kicks. Let her hit her offense. Look good. Get the social media talking with the finish, and then get out of there.
It's a real WWE thing where they think the fans want to see what the babyface looks like selling in their debut. I remember Asuka did her debut on the main roster, and she was selling for like the entire match against Emma. It's like, no, we want to see the new people just be badasses and be heroes and be the baby faces. Like, show me why I should cheer for this person, not why they almost get beat. I don't know. It's just a difference in philosophy, but they've never gotten it. After this, we had Duke Hudson backstage planting a smooch of all smooches on Persia Parada, only for Indy Hartwell to walk in. Indy Hartwell's appalled. Duke says that Indy used to like it, and she says that was a long time ago. Duke Hudson says it doesn't have to be, immediately macking on Indy Hartwell 2 seconds after Persia Parada walked off. This man is a whole waist suit, does not need to be trusted whatsoever. And then Dexter Lumis was standing in the corner, and he got sad and walked away. So, trouble in paradise for In-Dex? I don't know. I don't know.
Duke Hudson playing the role of Nate Jacobs between Cassidy and Maddie, playing those roles as Indy and Persia. And yeah, I mean, this is interesting. It's another way for them to use this In-Dex relationship, which has kind of been dormant since they got married and since Gargano and LeRae left. So I understand this is a story, it has some background because they did, have a past relationship apparently with Indy and Duke. So we're told, but it seems like one of the few tag teams, Indy and Persia, that you have in this women's tag team division are on their way to splitting up. So it's like, then you're just going to have 2 tag teams again, Toxic Attraction and Kacy and Kayden. It seems like we're reverting back to that again.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. Look, there's so much love in NXT. I don't know what's going on. You got Brooks Jensen being pathetic. You've got this. You had Zion Quinn and Santos Escobar. Zion Quinn has not been seen since that devastating loss, and all this comes after In-Dex. I don't know. Maybe they do just want to write romantic comedies and such, what have you. Robert Stone says Andre Chase is living in Von Wagner's world. I do not care about that feud whatsoever. Malcom Bivens has an in-ring promo talking about Imperium. Says Imperium has never won the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Imperium come out. They chant Walter like a lot. They chant Walter a lot, but he's like, oh, it's pronounced Gunther. No, it's not. Shut up.
Because Malcolm was calling him Gunna.
Yeah, I know, but I don't want to deal with it. I'm not dealing with it today. The Creeds and Fabian Eichner and Marcel Bartel, they got into a big brawl, and Walter was like cornering Malcom Bivens, and Solo Sikoa was the one to drop Walter and get the big thumbs up from Malcom Bivens. This is pretty much just more of what we saw last week, but now with the Creed brothers involved, we're setting up that tag title match. That'll probably be for Stand and Deliver, and I think that's pretty good. I think the Creed brothers should probably get those belts next. If they don't, they better have someone else in mind because the Creed brothers are great, but otherwise, it's a solid little segment.
Yeah, the Creed brothers need to get those tag team titles. Like they have very much that Steiner energy, and I think they would be well. And I think you made the comparison to them, like the Authors of Pain, who's won the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. You get kind of a feel of both of those teams when the Creed brothers are out there. And I think with Imperium, who are very underrated and have been having, banger tag team matches the last couple of months with MSK, I think they can get some of that magic with the Creeds here. Solo Sikoa and Walter, Gunther, whatever you want to call him. I like that because it's keeping him busy, because I kind of felt all along that they were building up Gunther to be the next one to verse Braun Breaker after WrestleMania season, after Dolph Ziggler. I wouldn't have been opposed to them versing at Stand and Deliver because I feel like, Gunther is like the monster heel of NXT 2.0, so I wouldn't have mind that. But him and Solo Sikoa going at it, it helps out Sikoa. He has now this like big obstacle to overcome. I think Walter is going to win next week, but I think this is a nice thing to keep them busy until either one of them get into the title picture. And Malcom Bivens had one of my favorite lines of the week, asking Imperium, are you one mic or are you Uchiwali? Are you who's the real? I marked out for that. I was like, Malcom Bivens, you're the man.
Malcom Bivens is indeed a treasure and needs to be protected. So we had the final of Brooks Jensen's dating app saga, whatever. Yeah, Joe Gacy and Harlan confronting Draco Anthony in a gym, and it's going to be Draco Anthony against Harlan next week. Cool, whatever. We had the next match in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic is Ivy Nile and Tatum Maxley. If I've ever heard of a name generator, just we need a wrestler name for this week for a job, or let's just type it in right here. Tatum Maxley. That's going to be her name. They took on Kacy Catanzaro and Kayden Carter. I thought Ivy Nile was by far the most impressive looking of the four competitors. I think she should be like the next NXT Women's Champion. She's fantastic. I love her presentation, the whole deal. She managed to get a near fall on, I believe it was Kayden Carter with a magic killer, which was kind of come out of nowhere. That's like a pretty big tag finisher, like people still use that and such. So just to see it used by a random thrown together team, I was like, well, that's kind of interesting. But Kacy Catanzaro and Kayden Carter were able to hit their neck breaker 450 combo on Tatum Maxley for the win. After the match, Ivy Nile choked out Tatum Maxley with her Dragon Sleeper, and then Roderick Strong had to be like, no, that's enough. Come on. Reel it in. So I like that they're protecting Ivy Nile. I wouldn't advocate for them beating her in any form. But if you're going to do it, this is a pretty good way to have her keep her heat. And of course, I mean, the Kacy Catanzaro and Kayden Carter are one of the only actual tag teams in this tournament. So you pretty much had to have them win.
Yeah, eventually they're going to have to get to them getting a shot at the women's tag team titles, because it's like, how long can you keep these girls together without them even getting a shot at the women's tag team titles? Because they feel like they've been around for a while without even getting an opportunity at the titles. Tatum Paxley definitely sounds like a character in Degrassi, or it should be on the reboot that's coming to HBO Max for sure. Ivy now, yeah, I definitely agree with you. She gives me kind of the Shayna Baszler vibes, where she can kind of just run through the entire women's division. I think they're taking it slow with her though, so that's why I don't see her like as the star power that I saw with like Nikkita Lyons, but definitely those two are like head of the pack as far as the women's division for newer stars that they've introduced. But this match was okay. I love the finish by Kacy and Kayden, the old skull and bones finish by Motor City Machine Guns, but with Kacy hitting the 450. That looks great, and that was a cool finish to this matchup. But I don't think they're getting past the next round with Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray.
I don't think so either. I think Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray will probably win this tournament. Maybe. I can't really think of anybody else who would, so I think that's totally fair. I like Ivy Nile a lot. I don't think she should be like winning the title, at Stand and Deliver or anything like that. But I do like her, and I want to see her continue to be built up.
There is the team that's going to be on Rivals 4 of the Challenge, Cora Jade and Raquel Gonzalez.
Also possible. I don't know where I missed that segment. They had a segment where they went like to a jungle gym. It was actually kind of sweet. It was kind of nice, I'm kind of curmudgeonly about this sort of thing. Like when Von Wagner and Kyle O'Reilly just went to the woods. This was a segment where Dakota Kai, Cora Jade was like, hey, you've been getting me up at 5 a.m. every morning. Now you're going to train my way. We're going to go to a jungle gym. And just ran around a jungle gym. And Raquel Gonzalez is afraid of heights. It turns out. Never heard of this. I don't think she's competed in a ladder match. So, okay, that's fair. But regardless, she had to conquer her fear of heights. So they went and did a jungle gym course and then went ziplining. It was more fun than it sounds. It was fun. It was a nice little segment. I like that they're having their little bonding moments.
Yeah, they're doing something with this whole, team. And I like what they're doing with a couple of the different tag teams in the Women's Dusty Cup. We kind of saw that with Io Shirai and Kaylee Ray last week. We saw last week, why is a cameraman in Cora J's house at 5 a.m.? I'm still wondering a week later, but here we are. At least they were outside with the cameraman recording them. But this felt like an episode of Nickelodeon Guts or MTV The Challenge, with them going across the jungle gyms and Cora Jade helping her and them bonding. It gives you the feeling that they could win the Women's Dusty Rose Tag Team Classic, but I think they're going to make the finals before losing to Io and Kaylee.
Nickelodeon Intestinal Fortitude, I believe, is what the show is, as the long form of it was. So LA Knight had another backstage segment saying that he will be the last man standing. I think they're leaning into that pretty hard. We got the announcements that next week Walter is taking on Solo Sikoa and Carmelo Hayes will be defending the title against Pete Dunne. And then we got our main event, which we've already talked about. I was about to say it was glorious. That's too strong for this episode of NXT. The main event segment was glorious. That was fine. Otherwise, the rest of the show was fine. It was pretty typical NXT 2.0 in that most of the middle of the show doesn't really matter a whole lot. Some matches have stakes, but the matches aren't long enough for you to really get invested in it. Otherwise, it's sketch comedy, and if you like sketch comedy, more power to you. As some people... And we've had people tell the show, there are people that just like the dumb comedy on this show, so more power to you. Not my favorite thing in the world, but this was not the worst episode of NXT I've ever seen. Wasn't the best, but certainly wasn't the worst.
No, the main event definitely keeps it above like some of the worst episodes we've seen since the 2.0 rebrand. Dolph Ziggler and Tommaso Ciampa worked hard. Dolph with one hell of a sell of Project Ciampa. I had to mention that because that looked great. And then the finish sets up a main event for next week. So I love the fact that they build up for the following week. Is something that I praise about with AEW. So I got to praise NXT on it. It's something that they've done since they've done this rebrand. So it's something that they've been consistent with. So I like the way that they are moving towards NXT Stand and Deliver. And I got a lot better feeling on NXT moving forward to WrestleMania season than I did after Monday Night Raw.
It's not saying a whole lot, but I do agree. We're going to get into the rest of your Ultra Chats. If you want to have yours read in by the end of the show, make sure you go to WrestleTalk or send it in to WrestleTalk.com/support, and we will read it out by the end of the show. That being said, that is the last call for Ultra Chats, so get them in now if you haven't already. Riot DR has sent in Nikkita Lyons coming out in her gear resembling Mortal Kombat circa 2011 with a Final Fantasy amount of buckles, not necessarily a thirst trap, walks in sexy slow-mo and strikes model poses. She's a dancer, still not a thirst trap. Unnecessary split spin. There's a lot going on with Nikkita Lyons. I think they need to focus her character up a little bit, but it's her first week on TV, so I'm going to give it a pass for now, but there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. I've come up with my own backstory of her, so yeah, you could kind of it's open to interpretation.
Yeah, I think so. Riot DR also says, okay, Briggs and Jensen are supposed to be bar brawlers, right? Could you imagine Bradshaw getting dating tips from Farouk because he got friend zoned by Miss Jackie? Why is this a thing? Also, I'm not convinced Von Wagner is human. LIW for life. Von Wagner is a lizard person. I'm convinced by this. Absolutely convinced by this. And now all I want to see is Bradshaw getting dating tips from Farouk. That would be funny.
Absolutely. Like you got to go up to him and be like, "Damn, baby." But yes, totally agree with that one. That would be awesome.
Okay, now my brain is melting just reading this next Ultra Chat, so bear with me. Matt Carney has donated $5 to say, Tempest, out of these 4 options, would you say that NXT at the moment is good, bad/good, bad, or good/bad? Thanks. Help me out, SP3. What does that mean? I don't know what the difference between bad/good or good/bad is. I think NXT 2.0 is a bad show with good qualities. I don't think that it is a good show with bad qualities, because every once in a while you will see like a good movie that has some bad qualities. Maybe the editing's not great. Maybe there's a bad performance. I love Aquaman. Have you ever seen the kid that tries to play young Aquaman, like the teenage Aquaman?
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's terrible. That to me is a good movie with some bad qualities. There are also bad movies with good qualities, like most of the movies that I usually say, including the greatest movie of all time.
I said forget about it, cuz.
Too Fast, Too Furious. There are bad movies with good qualities that you can still enjoy. I think that is NXT 2.0. It's still bad. Look at these comedy segments. Look at them. Look at Briggs and Jensen. Briggs and Jensen. Yes, I always get that mixed up because it's Briggs and Brooks and whatever. It's not good, but it has some entertaining qualities to it. That's my breakdown. Am I on the ball here? Do we think
you're on the ball? And there's shows like last week where they just let everybody wrestle, and it's actually a good show. So yeah, I think the best way to say it that it's a bad show with some good qualities. And the thing I was gonna say before about Von Wagner, I'm pretty sure he's actually the real life Encino Man. Pretty sure.
I like that. I like that explanation as good as any.
I'm like 85%.
Yeah. Tails P says, you know who's from Texas? He's got a wrestling background and just did a beer commercial, so he's the perfect opponent for Kevin Owens. Shaq.
Hey, I'm a Lakers fan. Laker great. Shaq in the ring. Hey, he just had a 5-star classic over in AEW. Come over, WrestleMania. Get the WrestleMania match you always wanted.
That was a year ago.
I know.
It's crazy. It was crazy. 10 Rosa has donated $5 to say, Tempest, I am a happy man. Foo Fighters just announced a huge stadium show here in Melbourne, Australia, and they're performing next Friday night. So excited. Also can't wait for Quizzlemania, my favorite show of the month. Go SP3. You guys are brilliant. I want to see the Foo Fighters again. Ooh, I'm going to try and figure that out. But yes, Quizzlemania is later today. Make sure that you all go to partsFUNknown. Set your reminders if need be. Quizzlemania. This guy right over here, probably going to win, maybe. I don't know. Who's going to win? Got to find out. And finally, the last one coming in just under the wire. Legit Underboss has donated $5 to say, is Waller going to be the new Dolph Ziggler? I don't know if anybody can be the new Dolph Ziggler. That's kind of a one and only, kind of difficult to attain position on the roster, I would say. You got to be there for like 20 years.
I say that Waller is the Wish version of Jeff Jarrett in the late 90s. That's the kind of the position I could see him at.
I like that. I agree. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of the WrestleTalk Podcast. Of course, I want to thank my wonderful co-host, SP3. Maybe you'll be seeing more of him in the near future. You never know. But make sure, of course, to check in with all of the WrestleTalk Podcasts right here on WrestleTalk Podcast. Of course, we've got the AEW review podcast coming out later tomorrow. We've got, just every podcast. You know the schedule. We've got SmackDown and Rampage. We've got the Team Danuke show, possibly with special guests this week. Don't want to make promises because, again, things fall through. But once that's officially announced, there might be something special coming to the Friday podcast this week. And, of course, Quizzlemania later today, as we previously said. Go and cheer on SP3. We love to see it. Until then, thank you for watching and stay beautiful.